Welcome back, everyone. Oz here. And today I've got some r/am I the asshole for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading the post, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Am I the asshole for telling my sister that it's implied that she'd have to pitch in around the house she's staying in, rent-free? Reddit has deemed this person the asshole. Let's find out why. I, 29 female, inherited a house from my maternal grandma. It's near the city, so I can get to work and it's big enough for me, my 2 kids, and my husband. Even on our 2 salaries, my husband and I wouldn't ever be able to afford a home like this, even though we are pretty frugal and have savings. The housing market is tough, and we're extremely fortunate. My half-sister Ella, 25, from my dad and I are very close, and she landed a new job in the city center. On her salary, she can't afford to rent a place in the city center area, and living on the outskirts and paying for a train there and back isn't cost-effective. She asked me if she could move in, as this was her dream industry, and although the pay wasn't great, it was for experience, and once she'd saved enough, she could get on her own feet. Ella got laid off around Christmas, and had been trying really hard to find work, so I offered her the guest bedroom. She said she'd help around the house. She's been here a month, and been busy with her new job. Now, I've asked her occasionally to help out, make dinner or put the kids to bed if me and my husband are running late, and it's been fine so far. I asked her on her work from home day to pick up my youngest from school as the nurse said she was sick. I couldn't reach my husband. There was major train delays on it, so it would take me at least an hour, and my house is a 5-minute walk from my kid's school. Ella texted me back saying that she was still working, but she'll try to pick up her niece when her meeting finished. I got upset. My daughter was sick and Ella said she would try and pick her up after her meeting. I called her to tell her boss that she needed 20 minutes to pick up her niece after a family emergency, and then she could continue. Ella argues that she still had to work for the rest of the day and she didn't have time to babysit her niece. I told her that I expected her to help around the house when she moved in, and she said that she wasn't free labor. There's tension in the house now, and I wanted a second opinion. Edit to add, I didn't call her boss. I asked her to call her boss and ask. It definitely did sound like that, and I can definitely see where the interpretation came from. Also, just because someone is working from home does not mean that they can just drop what they're doing at any given time to go and take care of something that you've asked her to. Like, you've put the entirety of the onus onto Ella when you couldn't even reach your husband and you weren't willing to go and take the train to handle what was going on with your own child. Ella was in the middle of a meeting, said she would after the meeting, and honestly, that's probably more than you deserve. Your sister was willing to help after she got her own personal work stuff handled and in order. You can't just expect her to drop what she's doing in her job while she's actively trying to get back on her feet to handle your daughter who's sick, when you can't even get a hold of your own husband to handle that. And it already sounds like she helps out around the house as it is. I mean, yes, it is very generous that you're giving your sister a place to stay, but you also need to remember that just because you were generous enough to open up a room for her doesn't mean that, she has to serve your every beck and call. It feels like that because you feel like you are generous towards your sister, it means that you have a certain amount of karma chips that you can cash in and actively be an asshole about it. I don't know, what do you all think? Because this is, in my eyes, I feel like on one hand, she was definitely generous towards her sister for giving her a place to essentially rebuild in. However, that doesn't mean that she can just drop her other responsibilities in question, especially responsibilities that help her get back on her feet, to aid in something that not even your husband is around to help with. Posted by Am I the Asshole Drawings. Am I the asshole for not punishing my son for his drawings? I, 40 male, have a son, 15 male, who loves to draw. He's very good at it and spends hours every day practicing. He has dozens of full sketchbooks in his room. Yesterday, we had some family over for dinner, and my sister's kids, 8 female and 10 male, snuck into his room and looked through his sketchbooks. They came back holding one of them. It was full of drawings of people either naked or in their underwear, which the kids found very funny. I didn't know he drew them. He's very critical of his own art and only shows me drawings he's very proud of, and these were very clearly practices. But I wasn't bothered by the contents. They obviously weren't sexual. They included men and women of all ages and weights in casual and non-provocative poses. He says he was just studying anatomy. My sister, however, was very upset. She was mad I let my son draw pornography and suggested he drew these people because he was attracted to them, which was silly because he's gay and the majority of the drawings were of women. the guys he did draw weren't what I imagined a 15-year-old boy would be attracted to. She was also upset that her kids were exposed to nudity, which I shut down pretty quick because they shouldn't have been snooping anyways. My sister is saying I'm ruining my son by letting him look at naked people. My dad agrees that the kid shouldn't have been in his room, but thinks he shouldn't be looking at that kind of stuff and says I should punish him for drawing it. I just don't see the big deal and think it's fine for my son to look at naked people, especially considering they're just realistic bodies being drawn respectfully. I don't know much about art, but if my son says it helps him improve, I believe him. My mom is entirely on my side. Am I the No. You're good. You're good. Dad of the year right here. Massive W right there. Practicing anatomy for people who are learning art is very, very common. And this is very common. This is not weird at all. This is just how people learn art. And even if there was like a sexual attraction and he was drawing what he was attracted to, there's nothing wrong with that. I think you should definitely sit down with your son and let him know that you support what he's doing and that this doesn't change your opinion of him at all, because he's probably embarrassed that his two cousins just ran into the family room holding his drawings, laughing about it and showing everyone what he's been drawing. That fucking sucks, dude. Make sure you're in his corner. On the second note, I think your sister was so pissed off because she wanted to try to remove the blame from her kids who were snooping through someone else's room and shift it onto your son, so that way she could just change the entire blame of the situation and get away with the fact that her kids were doing some pretty shady things. And she should definitely be teaching them about boundaries and personal possessions, because this would be a very different story if he was actively showing them like nudity and explicit material. But if they like went through his things, opened drawers and found sketchbooks and then paraded it around, and then the sister got mad at your son for just drawing things, like the content of the art doesn't even matter at that point in time. Also, originally going into this, I thought the story was going to be about a dad who found like his son was drawing like Five Nights at Freddy's drawings that were really graphic and bloody, and was just like, oh, no, he's just into this weird game online. And it was like gonna be like a school counselor who was losing their mind over it and trying to get them in therapy when it's just, you know, Bonnie and Chica and just general internet shenanigans. The only reason why I thought that is because I feel like there's gotta be an instance of like a kid drawing some like Five Nights at Freddy's fan art in the classroom and then getting sent to the counselor's office for drawing some pretty, honestly, if you're unaware of what Five Nights at Freddy's is, shocking material for a child to be drawing. That's the direction I thought this was going to be going and kind of hoped it would. Bryson 64. Am I the asshole? My ex-wife called the cops on me after I saved our son from her mistake. I'm divorced and I want to make sure that I'm not being unreasonable against my ex-wife, but I'm feeling pretty worried about my kid's health. We have a 5-year-old type 1 diabetic who was diagnosed on his first birthday, so we've been at this for 4 years. He got the Omnipod system this year and we all went through the training, insulin pump. I woke up on Monday morning to text from his mom saying his blood was around 225 to 525, 85 is normal, from 11 p.m. through the night. It was currently 6 a.m. and his blood sugar was still too high. She was saying he may need to go to the hospital. She says maybe change his pump, maybe he needs a new one. This means change it in an hour and a half when he gets to my home. My first thought is pump issues as well. I told her the doctors say to take his pump off, give him insulin from the pen, then put a new pod on when he comes down. This is mandatory basic understanding to use this system for our son. Her reply, the doctor said to do that if the pump doesn't work. What doctor told you that? I explained it to her that the doctor recommended this at the last endocrinologist appointment I had with him. Her reply, you can try what you want at your house. If he's not down by noon, you'll need to take him in or I will. I'm frustrated by this response. His blood sugar has been high for 7 hours at this point. Holy shit. By the time she drops him off with me at 7:30 a.m., it would have been 8.5 hours with blood sugar over 400. She has clearly communicated she is at a loss and is questioning hospitalization. Why would she be okay with waiting until noon? That will be 13 hours with blood sugar over 400 and serious risk and certainty of DKA. His blood turns to acid. I reply, if you bring him to me ASAP, I will get his blood down quick. If you think he needs a new pump, you should not wait on that, especially if you think he's close to hospital level. You need to provide me with all the troubleshooting steps you've already attempted. Her reply, I don't think there's anything wrong with the pump. I don't think you realize how high his blood sugar is. This is much worse than normal. If this happens at your house a lot, then there is a serious problem. Troubleshooting steps? This is our son, not a robot. Try to care for him, just like I've done all night. If he's not better by noon, we will take him in. Hospitals help, not harm. Then take him in. It's been 8 hours. To her, I do not think there is anything wrong with the pump. I remind her of the text she sent where she says maybe change his pump. Maybe he needs a new one. I ignore the rest of her jabs as I'm worried about my son and feel helpless to help him when I know what to do and she isn't following the training. I simply reply, tell me what steps you've taken throughout the night. Did you bolus for phantom carbs? If so, to what degree? Did you test for ketones? She replies that she did not test for ketones and asks me to do that on my time with him. She explains that she was tricking the pod to give double doses all night, and she tells me that she just removed the pod and immediately gave long-acting insulin. That is not the insulin he needs. He needs short-acting insulin. I ask, what time did you give long-acting insulin? I'll need to know for putting the pod on the next day. What was the dose of insulin from the pen you gave at the time? What was his blood sugar at the time? When did you notice he was first high? The Dexcom Follow app doesn't show me the exact time. What was his diet yesterday? What did he specifically eat before bed? She responds, calm down. If this is too much for you, I'll take the whole day off and take care of him myself if you prefer. I reply, I am the definition of calm. You are not providing the right details. Very long story short, she answers none of my questions. I get him and he was never given a shot from the pen. I check his blood manually, give him the correction dosage from the pen, and call the endo team and he was perfectly healthy within 2 hours. His mom got seemingly defensive that he was healthy so quick with me and demands I take him to the hospital even though he's now healthy. His endo says not to, that he's fine and only has trace ketones, so no risk of DKA, but to monitor him. His mom calls the cops on me. The cops say he's fine. She calls the fire department. They show up and say he's fine. I take him to the emergency room anyways at her request. He spends 3 hours just getting tests and fluids and they release him, showing he was fine all along. So, check me. I provided the exact quotes from my phone. Am I being a jerk? Does it seem like I was freaking out? I'm very worried about my son for future situations with this woman who seems to exude pride and ignorance at the expense of my son. The hospital sent us a behavior contract saying that if these outbursts continue, they can dismiss my son as a patient. I just want to check myself and see if I'm part of the problem because I might need to go back to court with her and fight for medical decision-making to protect my son in the future. But if I am part of the problem, then I need to check my attitude first. Too long didn't read, my ex-wife struggled to manage our diabetic son's dangerously high blood sugar, so I took over and got him stable quickly. She got upset, called the cops, and insisted on an unnecessary ER visit. Am I in the wrong to be concerned about her handling his diabetes in the future? Did I add to the problem? The fact that she just sat on this for 8 hours, then tried to make it your problem when she had the full responsibility of your son. Like, she's like, oh, you can take him to the hospital. Or if you don't want to, then I'll take him to the hospital. Yeah, do it. Take him to the hospital. He has high blood sugar. He could fucking die from that. Like, the only two options that I can think of is either she was incompetent and did not pay attention. Honest Cantaloupe 159. Am I the asshole for leaving my sister's wedding early after she called my career a hobby? So I, 26 female, just got back from my sister's 28 female wedding last weekend, and I'm still pretty upset about what happened. I'm hoping y'all can give me some perspective because right now I feel like crap. Some background. My sister Anna and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's the A-type, always on top of everything, super successful one, while I've always been more laid back and creative. I'm an artist, and I recently started my own small business selling my paintings and doing commissions. It's been slow, but it's starting to pick up, and I'm really proud of it. But my family, especially Anna, has always been a bit dismissive of my career choice. They don't get why I didn't go the traditional route like she did. Anyway, fast forward to the wedding. The ceremony was beautiful, and I was honestly so happy for her. I even helped out a lot with the planning, even though I wasn't the maid of honor, that was her best friend. I was doing my best to be there for her because despite everything, she's my sister, and I love her. At the reception, I finally got a moment alone with Anna and congratulated her. I told her how amazing everything was, how happy I was for her, all that stuff, and she just smiles and says, "Thanks. I'm surprised you actually made it. I figured you'd be too busy with your little hobby business." I was stunned. Like, did she really just call my career a hobby? I kinda laughed it off and said, "That's not a hobby, it's my job." But she just shrugged and said, "Well, it's not a real job, but I'm glad you're having fun with it." I didn't know what to say, so I just walked away. I tried to enjoy the rest of the night, but honestly, I couldn't shake what she said. It felt like she was belittling everything I've been working so hard for, so after dinner, I just decided to leave. I didn't say goodbye to her or anyone, I just grabbed my stuff and left. Now, my mom is furious with me for ruining the night by leaving early, and Anna hasn't spoken to me since. My dad is trying to stay neutral, but he did say I might have overreacted. I don't know, maybe I did. But it really hurt hearing her say that, especially on her wedding day when I was just trying to support her. Am I the asshole for leaving the wedding early? Honestly, as it stands, your sister isn't entitled to your time. You were there for her reception, you were there for dinner, and you left on your own accord quietly. You didn't make a scene, you didn't cause any problems, you just simply removed yourself from the frustrating situation. Could you have stayed for the rest of the wedding and been there to support your sister and not cause any future complications and have a conversation with your sister later about how her words hurt you? Yeah, 100%. But at the same time, everyone handles their emotions differently, and for some people, it's just better to remove themselves from the situation so that way they don't cause further problems, and I can definitely understand not wanting to do so on a night like this. And on a personal note, almost every hobby that I've had, I've somehow turned into a job. I certainly understand the frustration of someone belittling it and being like, "Oh, you're still doing that, huh? When are you gonna get a real job?" It's a frustrating and belittling comment. Repulsive Purple, 7304. Am I the asshole for losing my shit over cookies when my daughter-in-law tossed them out? Not the asshole. Now, I'm a good baker. I enjoy making sweet treats for everyone to enjoy. My daughter-in-law, Emily, is very health conscious, and even more so now that they have 2 kids. She's the type of person who avoids sugars, mostly eats organic, and avoids processed foods. When the grandkids visit, I usually make cookies or something sweet for them to enjoy. Every single time she sees them, she usually goes on about how they're unhealthy. We got into an argument about this a few months ago about not giving the kids junk. I pointed out that everything is homemade and I'm not only serving them cookies, my son stepped in on this and we compromised that the kids can have 1 cookie when they are here. This was good for a while until yesterday. The kids came over last night and I made a batch of cookies. They were cooling on the rack. Emily and my son decided to chat a bit before heading out. During that time, Emily went into the kitchen and threw away the cookies. When I asked her why she did it, she claimed she was doing me a favor since they're unhealthy. I yelled at her, saying that she had no right to throw away food that I had worked hard to make. She got defensive and said she was just trying to help. My son stepped in and told me to calm down, but I was furious. Emily left the room in tears, and now my son is saying I overreacted and should apologize. I told my son I will not be babysitting until he handles the situation, and I will not apologize. So this one's a bit weird because we've had previous posts here where we've had grandparents feeding the children stuff that the parents didn't agree with. I do think the parents do have the final say on whether or not their kids get to eat something. But they did compromise on 1 cookie. The grandparent loves to bake. They bake for the kids. It's not like they're going and, buying them Coke or a bunch of sugary stuff that they have no idea what's in them. It's homemade. They know the ingredients in and out. No allergens, nothing like that. It's made for the kids, and there's, 1 cookie isn't gonna kill them, okay? And I really gotta fight my personal biases here because my grandmother loves to bake. She's a whiz in the kitchen. And I would feel horrible if something like this happened to her and it would break her heart. So I'm trying really hard to separate this and look at both sides. On one end, I can understand why Emily wants to make sure that her kids are eating healthy. But 1 cookie isn't going to hurt them. Hell, they even compromised on 1 cookie. That was a compromise that they made. They aren't allergic, the ingredients are safe because it's not like it's a processed cookie that sits in a grocery store bakery aisle that's just chock full of preservatives. Now, if the story ended here, I might be a little bit more inclined to side with Emily because yeah, she should have a say of what her kids are eating. However, the moment that she went out of her way to toss the cookies, especially after a compromise was made, stating that I'm doing you a favor, that right there, the line is crossed, and Emily becomes the asshole in this situation because, in the end, technically speaking, she is destroying property. My guess would be she was probably very unhappy with the compromise and decided that if, she couldn't have it her way, even with the compromise being there, that she'll just force it to be her way by throwing away the cookies. You may have angrily reacted, but if daughter-in-law apologizes, then you should apologize as well. However, to find out that something that you worked hard on was just simply thrown away for your own good, I can understand there being a bit of a negative reaction for that. It also sounds like daughter-in-law might have a very unhealthy relationship with food and might need some therapy for that. There's nothing wrong with sugar and baked goods as long as you eat within moderation, especially if it's homemade. Honestly, it sounds like Emily's fight should be with preservatives and forever chemicals and other bullshit they pack into food to make it last longer on store shelves. But instead, it sounds like that she's misguided her animosity towards food towards sugar, which, yes, is not good to have in large quantities. However, it's not nearly as bad for you as some of the other shit they put in your food. Eye of the Tiger 1. Am I the asshole for taking a chip from my best friend's girlfriend plate on a double date? Reddit has deemed this person the asshole. My best friend invited me on a double date with his girlfriend's best friend. Me, looking to get into a relationship, said, yeah, sure, not knowing what I was getting into. So my friends pick me up and we all head out to dinner to this nice place they picked. When we got there, everything was going well until our food arrived. Everyone got their plate and we all jumped into eating. I saw that my chips were straight cut, and my best friend's girlfriend ordered curly fries with her food instead of normal straight cut. Me, curious how it tastes, just say, oh, how does your chips taste? And grab one chip off her plate. She then looks at me in shock and says, what the fuck, did you just touch my food? I then just said, oh, sorry, did you want some of my chips? Trying to be fair. She then turns to her boyfriend and goes, nope, I'm not eating, and throws her cutlery on the table and sits back. Me, embarrassed as hell next to my date, just say, I'm sorry, I didn't know you didn't like people touching your food. Would you like me to order you a new plate? And said sorry. She then started being stubborn as hell and says nope and nope. Even her best friend said she can share her plate with her and she was still being stubborn as hell. We then just proceeded to eat a little. Table dead-ass quiet at this point. Then my best friend said, let's go for a cigarette, so we got up from the table and walked to the smoking area. I then proceeded to apologize, but he insisted I don't, and that he should apologize for his girlfriend's actions. Long story short, we left the place after we ate, and we all went home. Am I the asshole? Please, I need to know, please. I think everyone sucks in this situation, because yeah, you did touch her food, and that's... Some people really just do not like that, even if you're just snagging a fry. Unless you have a pre-established connection with someone and understand their boundaries, never just reach over and touch their food. She doesn't know where your hands have been. And if she's a germaphobe, that's probably her worst nightmare. On the other hand, I will commend you for trying to make things up and offering to pay for a new plate of food and doing what you can to try to make up for it. And yeah, it was a bit dramatic of her just to simply shut down any attempt for you to make things up, but at the same time, she was probably just really put off by the fact that someone just reached over and touched her food without asking. I mean, it would definitely upset me. It wouldn't upset me to this point, but I would definitely be a bit miffed about it. Because at the same time, it's not like you just full-fisted, patty caked your entire hand into her food and just went, whoops, I'm sorry. You just grabbed a fry. But you still touched her food. I think the fact that you definitely tried to make things up and immediately tried to buy her another plate to make up for what you did definitely lessens the blow of this because, I mean, it was an honest mistake. But yeah, you do kind of fall into the primary asshole, but at the same time, I do think she does kind of suck in this situation for just shutting down and amplifying the amount of blame to be cast upon you, despite your attempts to fix your mistake. Extension Umpire 7129. Am I the asshole for naming my son the name I had always planned, even after my brother and sister-in-law stole the name? Reddit has deemed this person not the asshole. My brother and his wife have as much of a right to name their child whatever they want as I do. I do not own my name. I have no right to dictate to my brother what he names his kid. With that in mind, my husband has a traditional family name that I love. Basically, since he and I were dating and started discussing our future, we agreed that our son would have that name. Asheen. My husband is Irish, not in the Boston, my great-great-grandfather came over in the 1800s kind of way, in the born in Galway kind of way. Neither my family or my sister-in-law have any other connection to Ireland. She got pregnant right around when I did, and her son was born 2 months before ours. They named my nephew Oshin Miguel. I didn't get upset or anything. When my son was born, we named him Oshin Daniel, like I had told her we would be doing. She has flipped out that 2 cousins will have the same name. She's nuts because our family is Hispanic and half of our cousins are named Carlos or Camilla. She's trying to insist we call him by his middle name or change his name. I told her to piss off. My mom is staying neutral, but she was very surprised that my brother gave his son an Irish name he knew I was planning on using. She expected him to name him for our late father. Anyways, my husband's family think the whole thing is hilarious. My family thinks my sister-in-law is a weirdo and she thinks I'm an asshole for copying her. Whatever, I'm posting here and sending her the link so she can see outside opinions. I can't wrap my head around this. She named her child something that had no significance to her, knowing that it had significance to you and your husband, and then acted surprised when you went through with it and told them that you would be going through with it. She probably liked the name and thought that by her getting it first for her child means that you wouldn't go through with it. Now she gets a unique baby name that makes sense. Well, actually, no, it doesn't make sense because she has no Irish connections. And thought you would just back down and find something else. Good for you for sticking to it. Invisible Throw RA. Am I the asshole for refusing to adopt my sister's baby even though my family says I should? I, 21 female, just finished college and was finally looking forward to starting my life. I went to college with a lot of my expenses paid for by scholarships and grants, and I've always been pretty responsible financially. I saved up a lot of money while in school and was able to buy my own small apartment. I just landed a job in my field where I'll be making around $45,000 a year. It's not a ton, but it's enough for me to be independent and comfortable, especially in an entry-level job. My older sister, 27 female, has struggled with heroin addiction for years, and things recently got worse. She was arrested and is now facing a long time in jail, possession with intent to distribute, and an illegal firearms charge while in possession of drugs. The real issue is that she just gave birth a few days ago to a baby girl, my niece, who was born addicted to heroin. The baby is still in the hospital, going through withdrawal, and it's absolutely heartbreaking to see. The poor baby is innocent in all of this, and it kills me to think about the rough start she's having. Now, my family is pressuring me to adopt the baby. They say that because I'm the most stable one in the family, it's my responsibility to step up. Nobody else has the financial ability to add an extra person, especially a baby, to their home. They keep telling me that I'm the best option because I have my own place, a steady income, and no major responsibility or kids of my own. Technically, I could do it, but I don't feel ready. I'm only 21. I just finished college and haven't even started my career yet. I'm terrified of taking on such a huge responsibility, especially for a newborn with special needs. I don't know the first thing about raising a child, let alone one who's been through so much already. I don't even really want kids. I've tried explaining this to my family, but they keep saying that I'm being selfish and that if I don't take her in, she'll end up in the foster care system. My mom even accused me of abandoning my niece, just like my sister did by getting involved with heroin. The worst part is that the baby is being discharged from the hospital in a few days, and the pressure from my family is getting more intense. I'm so close to breaking because I do care about my niece, and I don't want her to suffer, but I'm also scared out of my mind that I won't be able to give her the life that she deserves, and I'm worried that I'll end up feeling trapped or resentful. I feel like I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. Am I the asshole? Edit, I've been told to put this in my post by a person who messaged me here. My family and I are Dene. ICWA applies here. I'm sorry I didn't put that in the original post. I hope my pronunciation was close. I had to hunt down a lecture on the Dene language to see if I was at least somewhat on topic, and I hope I am. Edit 2. To the people PMing me and messaging me asking, begging, and demanding to adopt my niece, all of you are so predatory and disgusting. You are all horrible people. Leave me the fuck alone if you're a prospective adoptive parent looking to buy someone else's baby. Well, those edit editions are a bit gross, good god. So this one is complicated. And before any of you comment, OP is 100% in the right and not the asshole if they do not adopt their sister's child. The reason why it's complicated is because they're right. If they do adopt the child, they're probably going to grow resentment towards it as a possibility, and they may not be in the best place right now in their life to be able to support a child. They just became independent. And not to mention, they didn't spend the last 9 months preparing for a child. It's kind of just being dropped on their shoulders right now. Now, the complication comes into the fact is that I imagine that if they choose to essentially be the party responsible for their sister's child going up for adoption and ending up with the foster care system, they will probably blame themselves for that for the rest of their lives and have the constant question of, what if? And that's where the complication comes from. They've been tasked with a pretty impossible burden, and I feel like no matter what choice they make, they're not the asshole in any scenario, but they do need to make what's best for them. And they can't let this decision haunt them, because it probably will. And that's kind of the sad truth of it. Don't forget, this is brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code ODDS at checkout. It's basically a caffeine powder that you put in your water, and I actually really like it. I use this on a daily basis. Don't forget that every purchase you make using code ODDS directly supports the channel. And if you want a personal recommendation from me, I would either recommend the Soda Pressing Pear or Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are currently my favorite flavors. And as a note, once we sell a certain amount of stuff, I get my own flavor and my own cup, and you all know I'm gonna choose some degenerate shit that's gonna make their PR team squirm. My goal is to make them regret partnering with me. So please, use code ODDS at checkout to make my dream come true of making a PR team squirm.